started first grade when I was 4 years old. I was friendly with the son of the principal. Principal wanted his son to skip second grade. I was 5 years old in third grade. You do the math. I graduated 8th grade when I was 10 years old, but I couldn't go to high school. So I had to redo 7th and 8th grade in another elementary school. So I was able to begin to go to high school at the more respectable age of 12. This was a big challenge for me, and I always had, for a long time, challenges in terms of my academic work and also my social relationships. I was the youngest in the class. I was the shortest in the class. And many years later, I asked my mother, "Mommy, why did you do this to me?" And she said to me, "Yankov Yosefol," she spoke and mentioned my name in the Yiddish diminutive of my Hebrew name. "Yankov Yosefol, I promise you, I will never do it again." I love my mother dearly, really, really dearly. I owe her so much. I have no complaints. But this story got me thinking about the propensity that many of us have to try to get things done quickly, to try to find what we're looking for quickly, and to try to find success quickly. And then when we don't find it, we get frustrated and we get upset. Redemption will come, please God, but redemption is a process. Redemption takes time, and redemption takes patience, whatever form we want that redemption to take. Moses learned this lesson very well in his very first conversation with God. At the burning bush, God comes to Moses and says to Moses, "I have heard the cries of the Jewish people. It's time to take the Jews out of Egypt. And Moses, I want you to be the one. You are the messenger. You're the one right now. I want you to go down and I want you to effect the freedom of the Jews from Egypt." And no sooner does God come to Moses, Moses begins a long conversation. "Please, who, me, what, I can't. What am I going to tell them? I'm not well-spoken, I'm not sophisticated, I'm not articulate. How am I going to identify myself to them?" And finally, Moses says, "You know what? Shlach na biyad tishlach. Just send who you want to send, but don't send me." And at that point, God says, "Moses, this conversation is over. Go down." That's the end. I have 3 questions. The first question is, where is Moses' respect for God? If God comes to you and says, "Do something," so you do something. "No, I can't." You argue for a week. Where's your respect? Where's your relationship with God? We're talking God here. God says go, you go. Second question is, where is his sensitivity to the plight of his co-religionists in Egypt? Doesn't he know what's going on? Of course he knows what's going on. How did he end up where he was in the first place? Because he had to leave Egypt. He had to flee from Egypt because he saw an Egyptian hitting a Jew and he went and he killed the Egyptian. And he had to run for his life. Moses was not callous or indifferent to the fate of what was going on in Egypt. He's sitting there, he's standing there for decades, and all he's thinking about is, "Oh my God, what's going on in Egypt?" And now he has a chance. So he should say to God, "Quick, where were you? Every argument, more Jews are suffering." Where is his sensitivity? Where is his love for the Jewish people? And the third question is, what kind of a strange phrase is this at the end? Send who you're going to send, shlach na biyad tishlach. Just send whoever you want to send. Who's he referring to? What's the reference? There is a wonderful rabbinic statement, teaching, that tells us that Moses here was referring to Elijah the prophet. Moses says to God, "Listen, God, don't send me. I want you to send Elijah the prophet." Why Elijah the prophet? Elijah the prophet, in our tradition, has a particular role. He's the harbinger of redemption. And as the harbinger of redemption, Moses says, "Listen, listen, don't send me. I know what's going to happen if you send me. If you send me, so I'll take them out of Egypt. We'll wander in the desert, and then we'll come to the land of Israel. And we'll be in the land of Israel for hundreds of years, and then, thank God, there'll be a temple. But the temple isn't going to last forever. There'll be a destruction of the temple. Then there'll be an exile. I know, God, it's only going to be a short exile. And then there'll be a second temple, thank God, also is not going to last forever. That's going to be destroyed. And then, God, we're going to go into a huge exile, a terrible exile. In the 2nd century, we're going to have the 10 martyrs at the end of the 11th century, the First Crusade throughout the 12th century, more crusades in the 13th century, the burning of the Talmud in the 14th century, the Black Death massacre at the end of the 15th century. The Jews are going to be expelled from Spain in the 17th century. There's going to be the Khmelnytsky massacre. At the beginning of the 20th century, there's going to be a Kishinev pogrom. And God, in the middle of the 20th century, there's going to be a Holocaust. And at the end of the 20th century, God, you know that buses are going to be blown up in the streets of Jerusalem. And in the beginning of the 21st century, God, rockets are going to be flying. God, I beg you, don't send me. Send Elijah the prophet. You send Elijah the prophet, we're done. It's over. The redemption has arrived. We go to Israel. We live in our homeland forever and ever in peace and in calmness and in security. Moses was not arguing for a week. Moses was arguing for all eternity. And it's precisely his love for the Jewish people that caused him and gave him the capacity to push back at no less than God himself. Because he loved the Jews, he couldn't let this happen. And God says, Moses, listen, someday, you're right, someday I'm going to send Elijah. But now I'm going to send you. Because Moses, redemption doesn't work that way. Redemption is not from 0 to 104 seconds. Redemption is a process. Blessings are a process. They take time. You can't just do it, have it, be successful, and that's the end. We want blessings. We have to work for those blessings. We have to all be deeply, deeply engaged in what it is that we do. Proactive in that what we do for our communities. But not to get frustrated if things sometimes take a long time. In the late 60s and early 70s, there was a fellow who was a social psychologist at Stanford University who did a study. And the study was known as the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. He brought a bunch of little kids into a room, average age 4.5, and he says to them as follows. They come in, they sit down, and in front of them there's a table, there's a plate, and there's a marshmallow on the plate. And they tell the kid, if you want, you can have the marshmallow. But if you wait until I come back, you can have 2 marshmallows. Generally about 15 minutes. He does a longitudinal study years later. He goes back. And those kids who had patience, those kids who didn't take the marshmallow right away, scored higher on all different kinds of exams, higher SATs, greater sense of educational achievement, more cognitive capacities. They were thinner. They were healthier. You want to have it right away, you can have something. You want to really have something? You want to have something that matters? You want to have something that's lasting? So understand that it doesn't happen right away. Understand that it takes time. Some of you may remember about 10 years after that, there was a famous Heinz ketchup commercial. And Carly Simon is singing Anticipation. Kids are sitting, and they're holding the bottle, and they're holding the bottle, and they're looking at the bottle, and it just takes time. It just takes time. What's the most common phrase that we have all heard from our kids in the backseat of the car about a minute into the car ride? Are we there yet? Today on the plane, I'm sitting in a row with a little kid and a mother. The plane takes off. We're climbing 5 seconds after the plane took off. The kid says, "Hey, Mommy, are we there yet?" I couldn't believe it. Are we there yet? We want to be there. Of course we want to be there. We want to be there in so many different ways. But to be there takes time, takes effort. It's a process. Don't get frustrated if it doesn't happen right away. We want personal redemptions. We want to be healthy. We want to live long. We want national redemption. It's enough already. All of the issues that face our people. By now we would have hoped that we would be further along, that the state of Israel would not be facing these kinds of challenges. We want national redemption. We want an American jury that's engaged. We want an American jury that cares. We want an American jury for which Judaism matters, Jewishness matters. That's what we want. Be engaged with our tradition. Be engaged with our culture. We want redemptions. And we need to work for it and take nothing for granted. And not stop for a second and be constantly proactive. But at the same time, with all the effort and all the engagement and everything that we do, all of us, in our own communities, in our own homes, in our own national life, make the effort, expend the energy, but understand, don't throw in the towel. If things don't just turn out the way we want them to, and the way perhaps they should, as quickly as we want. We want the best for ourselves. We want the best for our people, and we deserve it. We, our families, our communities, our people, and the world, indeed, deserves nothing less.